So hello and welcome to today's Just Like Us masterclass workshop with Dan Bow on Love in Art. We're really excited to see you all here today. At Just Like Us, we give talks in schools about being different and celebrating those differences. This workshop is part of the Just Like Us Diversity Week, celebrating diversity and being LGBT in education. This year's Diversity Week is a little different as we will be broadcasting to you live online. Now, before I go into how this workshop will work, can we all please watch this short clip on how to keep ourselves safe online?
Hello, we hope you're enjoying loads of interesting activities for School Diversity Week. Millions of young people are a part of this and you must keep safe online. So as part of this, we are moderating and disabling public comments you might make on our social media so we can protect your identities. If you do want to communicate something to us, please just direct message us on our social media platforms, or you can email info@justlikeus.org so we make sure that we're still protecting your identity. Justlikeus.org/betteronline has more information about this and also has some information about where you can go for help or where someone else can go if they need help.
So thank you for watching that clip. It's really important that we know how to keep ourselves safe online. Now we will shortly hear from Dan, who will give us his talk on Love in Art. This will be followed by an activity. The workshop will run for around 40 minutes. After the talk and activity, Dan will be answering some questions from our lovely ambassadors who are here with us today. So let me hand over to Dan, who is here to talk to us today.
Hello everyone, it's lovely to be here with you, and I'm really looking forward to showing you today what you can see in terms of love in art. So I'm going to share my screen with you now. Great. Hopefully you can see what I'd like you to see. A quick thumbs up from you, Ollie, if that's all right. Can you see the slides? Fabulous. Wonderful. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Dan, and I work in museums, a lot of museums, and I look for examples of art in the past, a long time ago, that tells us about LGBTQ plus people. And so today we're going to be looking at love in art. So that's queer love across place and time. I believe that love is for everyone and everybody deserves to be loved. So we respect and celebrate other people, cultures and differences. And today I'm going to take you for a bit of a travel around the world through place and time. We're going all across the world, and we're also going to go backwards in time. And then we'll start to move forwards again back to our day today. So what you're going to see is a lot of very old art. Some of it is going to be of real people, others it's going to be imaginary people, but they all show us how everyone can be a little bit different. So here is the big slide at the start to kind of show you where we're going to be going. We're going to go all around the world. I'm going to take you to Greece and introduce you to Sappho. Then we're going to go to Greece and Rome, where you're going to meet Hermaphroditus. Then we're going to go to India, where you'll get to meet Avalokiteshvara, Avalokiteshvara in Guan Yin in India, China, East Asia. Then we're going to go to Nigeria, and finally we're going to come back to and finally we're going to come to the US. In fact, we're going to go to the US, but the piece that I want to show you is actually in Britain. So as you can see on the left-hand side, all the way down there, you'll see that we're going to start from a long time ago, and we're going to move forwards in time to where we are today. So my first piece that I want to show you, as you can see on the big red dot, the big red dot shows you where this person was born and where they grew up and where they lived. So their name is Sappho, and they were around from about 630 to 570 BC. We're not exactly sure of the precise dates, but we do know that they lived in Greece and they lived on an island called Lesbos. And the piece I'm going to show you is called Sappho and Erina in the Garden, and was painted in 1864 by Simeon Solomon, and it's in the Tate. And so this is the lovely piece here. I think it's rather gorgeous. So you can see Sappho there giving Erina a kiss, and it's in the garden. So I want you to have a bit of a close look right now. And what can you see in the garden? You might spot that Sappho is the person who's wearing a crown with laurel leaves. That means that Sappho had won a competition, and Sappho is considered to be one of the 10 muses. Sappho was an excellent poet, was one of the most renowned Greek poets of all time. And to actually stand up against 9 other men as a female poet, I think was really significant. Sappho lived about more than 2,500 years ago. And Sappho is the person that we get the word sapphic love, which is an old-fashioned way of saying love between women. So a woman who loves a woman, which nowadays we might also call a lesbian. Sappho lived on the Isle of Lesbos, and that's no accident. We actually get the word lesbian from Sappho as well. If you see above Sappho and Erina, you actually see that there's two doves as well. And the doves are a sign of love as well. Other things that show us that there is love in this picture might be the fact that there is a sculpture that you might see on the right-hand side. That's Aphrodite. Sappho had written 9 books of poetry. A lot of them we don't have anymore. They were lost to time. But what we do have is a wonderful poem that Sappho wrote to Aphrodite asking for her help. Sappho was in love with a woman and wanted Aphrodite to help her express this love through her poetry. And so that's another example that we have of how Sappho is an amazing role model for lesbians. I'm going to take you to the next piece now. And this one is not so far away. It's in Greece and Rome. So you can see the orange dot. We're going to be meeting Hermaphroditus, or Hermaphroditus. So Hermaphroditus was known in Greece and Rome, and we're looking at around about 300 to 200 BC. So it's still a very long time ago. The piece that I'm going to show you is from about 1700, and it's in Petworth House. It's by an artist called Bernini, and the piece is called The Sleeping Hermaphrodite. So I want to ask you, what do you know in terms of Greek and Roman heroes? How many Greek and Roman heroes do you know? I already mentioned the goddess Aphrodite. She was the goddess of love. You know that Sappho wrote poems to her. The Romans would have called her Venus, but they also considered her to be a goddess of love. Other heroes that you might have heard might have been Mars, who's the god of war, or Hermes, who is the god of, who was a messenger god. So Hermes would courier messages between the gods, and this is before, of course, all the gods had smartphones and could send each other text messages. So we have Hermes as a really important god in the Greek pantheon, and also the Romans. The Romans knew Hermes as Mercury. So Hermes and Aphrodite had a son named Hermaphroditus. Hermaphroditus is who you see right here, having a bit of a snooze. Hermaphroditus, though, to start the story, was the son of Hermes and Aphrodite and was incredibly handsome. And one of Aphrodite's nymphs, Salmachus, saw him one day and thought he was so beautiful and had an absolute crush on him and wanted to live with him forever. He wasn't ready to rush in, though, so he said, no, sorry, but maybe not. And this made her really angry. So Salmachus, that made her want him even more. And so what happened was Salmachus grabbed him and held him in a really big, unbreakable hug and shouted up to the gods and said, please let us be together forever. And the gods saw this and thought that they'd let it happen. They would make it come true. They'd make this wish come true. But it wasn't in the way that she'd expected. What they did instead was they combined Salmachus and Hermaphroditus into one person. And so in one person, you actually have someone who is both a boy and a girl. And what's really interesting for me is that Hermaphroditus sort of shows us that everybody's body is different. Now, the next piece is a little bit like that. I'm going to take you to India, and we're going to meet Adhaneshvara. And they were believed, they are a deity in the Hindu faith, and they sort of came into being at around about 30 to 300. And what's really interesting is some people connect the story of Hermaphroditus and Adhaneshvara together. They feel that there's a connection between the two stories, and you might think there is too. So the story starts in India, and it sort of spreads all across South Asia as well. So I'm going to introduce you to a sculpture that is at the Victoria and Albert Museum, and also a painting that is at the Victoria and Albert Museum. The sculpture's a lot older. It's from 150, but the painting's a little bit newer. It's from 1825, which is still quite old. So here they both are, and Adhaneshvara is often considered to be an androgynous being. So it has both boy and girl elements. And Adhaneshvara is called the Lord who is half woman. That's what it translates to. Now, if you look at the two, have a look and see if you can see where Shiva and Parvati joined together, because that's how Avalokiteshvara was made. It was when the Hindu deity Shiva, the supreme being, and Parvati, the goddess of love, joined together, and they showed that there is a sense of perfect balance in the universe. So if you look carefully, you'll see that there is a split right down the middle, where you can see that one half is Shiva and the other half is Parvati. It's easier to see in the painting, isn't it? If you kind of look closely in the painting, you'll see that Shiva is wearing a tiger skin, and on the other side, you'll see that Parvati is holding a lotus flower. What's really interesting, and what I think is really cool, is also the fact that on the painting, you'll see that each of the two arms from each deity is still retained. So this new being actually has 4 arms. I like to think that it's because for all the people who pray to them to ask for things to be, wishes to be granted, it means that there's more hands for them to help. It's a really beautiful piece in my mind. I really think that it's amazing. And you can really see the clear split between the two. But it's the coming together that makes this being really important. And very recently in India, there was a group of transgender people who actually created a new Adhaneshvara. Instead of combining Shiva with Parvati, they decided to join Shiva with Durga, who is the warrior goddess. And what they did was they created the first transgender deity in the Hindu faith, or what they believe to be the first transgender deity in the Hindu faith. And the deity is there to help protect LGBTQ plus people. So Adhaneshvara is there to protect us from bullies if we are LGBTQ plus. My next piece, as you can see, does a bit of traveling. It's the idea that ideas can travel, but the symbols that represent them might change. And so I'm going to introduce you to Avalokiteshvara Guan Yin. Now you'll see that I've given you a few numbers, so it helps you a little bit. So you've got number 1, 2, and 3, because this being starts off in India, and then they travel over the Himalayas into China. So that's number 2, and it spreads all across China. And then it even moves further east into places like Korea, Japan, Vietnam, where I'm from, but also Cambodia, and lots of many other places as well. In different places, this one being has different names. So in India, they might be called Avalokiteshvara. Further to the east, like in Japan and Vietnam, they might be called Guan Yin. In the middle bit, they get called Avalokiteshvara Guan Yin. So all these different names mean the same person. And the reason I'm introducing you to them is because of that journey. It's really interesting. So Avalokiteshvara is a deity from the Buddhist faith. They are friends with the Buddha, and they're there to help the poor and unfortunate people on earth, but they're also there to remind us to do the right thing in our daily lives. So when they start this journey in India, they're called Avalokiteshvara, and they are called the Lord of Compassion. Now, over that 1,000-year journey, as they move across different communities, each community that receives them change the image slightly. So as it gets into China, it becomes Avalokiteshvara Guan Yin. And then as it moves east, it becomes Guan Yin, who we might also call the goddess of mercy. So what's happened is they've changed gender from male to female. But wherever they go, they're still there to remind us that everyone needs to treat each other with kindness and to show each other love. So for me, when I look at this particular piece, I think that it's a reminder to act with love and compassion, especially for those less fortunate than us. So maybe have a think in your life at the moment, what is an example of an act of compassion? How might you show compassion to others? We're moving quickly around the world now. This next piece is in Nigeria, and it's of an EVO Maiden Spirit, and it's from around 800. So we're getting closer to time. The mask that I'm going to show you of an EVO Maiden Spirit is from the Museum of Archaeology and Anthropology in Cambridge. So here it is. So I wonder, why would you put on a mask? Why do you wear masks? Have you ever worn one before? What are you normally thinking when you're wearing your mask? Normally when people are wearing masks in Nigeria, it's in a part of Nigeria called Igbo land, and the masks like these, they are called Maiden Spirit masks. So they represent spirits. And people will usually put this mask on in order to celebrate a special festival. It might be to ask for lots of food to be grown on a farm so that everybody's got lots to eat and that everyone have a full belly. Or it could also be to ask the maiden spirit to help guide a loved one who's died recently to take them to their final resting place and make sure that they're given safe passage. The interesting thing for me is that usually it's men who wear these masks, and they wear the masks in order to take on the character of a woman. So they take on the character of the maiden spirit. And usually when they wear them, they're accompanied by lots of musicians and other performers who are wearing this mask, and they dance faster and faster, and the music gets louder and louder, and the whole point is to make the spirits really happy. So when you ask them to do things for you, they will be more willing to oblige. And as the man is wearing this mask, while they're wearing the mask, they become a woman. So in this case, the gender can be described as a performance. So Igbo maiden spirits remind us that gender roles might not always be the same, might not always be fixed. Now I'm taking you to a piece that I really like because it's closer to our time. It's 1991. It's still well before you were born, but it's a really lovely piece. It's by a Cuban artist named Felix Gonzalez Torres, and it's inside the Tate, which you can actually visit. A lot of these objects that you've seen are, in fact, all the objects that I've shown you today are from British collections, so you should be able to visit them once museums are welcoming people once again. But this particular piece is called Double Portrait. And I really like it because sometimes we don't have words to express what we're feeling or the emotions that we have. And Felix is really good at using symbols to express some of the emotions. And that's what artists do that sometimes is really great. They can use symbols to get a message to you without having to write out using words. So have a think about what symbols that you can think of that represent love. Without using words, what else could you have to show love? So this particular piece is made up of lots and lots of pages. And on all of the pages, Felix has printed the same symbol. It's these two circles that are joined together. Some people, it's also made out of gold. And so some people think that they look like gold rings. So it reminds people of a wedding. It could also represent two people coming together. So it could be like love. When you put two symbols like this together, two circles together, you also get a shape that looks like the number 8. But if you turn it on its side, you also get a symbol that means eternity or infinity. It's a mathematical symbol, and if you look at the top right-hand corner, you'll see that I put one there for you so you can see what this symbol looks like. And a lot of people use this to mean eternity or infinity. And I think it's really nice that he's using a piece that has two circles coming together. So it could be two people coming together representing love, and it also means forever. A lot of people also say that because it's two circles, two shapes that are the same, it could represent same-sex love as well. And Felix was a gay man, and a lot of his work does represent same-sex love. So I like to think this does. Also, because I'd said to you before that these are pieces of paper that are all stacked up, and sometimes they're stacked up high, sometimes they're not so high, but because there's so many different pages of them, I like to think that it means that there's so much love going around the world as well, that there's more love than you can take away. So there's always more to be seen and always more to be shared. And that's what I think that is great about this piece. It's showing that sometimes when you can't express things with words, you can show it in art, and you can use art to show love. So I've shared some of this with you in order to sort of bring you to a very important piece of law that I really like, because it's called the Equality Act 2010, and it's what protects LGBTQ+ from being bullied, which we might also call discrimination. In some other countries all around the world, it's against the law for LGBTQ plus people to love who they want to love or be who they are. And in some countries, this is because it's an old law that was introduced by the UK across the whole world hundreds of years ago. So it's really old. And I think that by learning about LGBTQ plus love and the stories that you've heard today from all around the world, it might actually help us get rid of some of these old laws, because we know that LGBTQ plus people have been around for a long time and they've been celebrated. We've been celebrated as part of society and ancient history going back thousands of years. So if you want to continue having an explore about these ideas about love throughout history, maybe you might want to do some of the things that I've suggested here, which is you could draw an image or write a story that shows love from your own history, or you can get a map out and you can pick a different part of the world and you can find a story from there to share. Another option might be that you could choose one of the images that you've already seen today, and you might have to go away and do some research or do some homework and write a story of love, write a story that shows love as well. I think it's really important that we do this, because by showing that love is something that everybody deserves, we can also learn to respect other cultures and we can show love for others, and it just makes for a happier world. So as I said earlier, all the objects that you've seen today, all the works of art that you've seen today are in collections that you will be able to visit. But while we're not visiting museums at the moment, you can also go online to find out about them as well. And then, of course, if you want to find out more, I really recommend some lovely people. There's LGBT Switchboard, the Proud Trust and Mermaids UK. They're really great organisations. If you're interested in getting your teachers involved in LGBT History Month, you can point them to the LGBT Plus History Month website. But of course, we're all here for Just Like Us, and I'm going to show my love right now for all the wonderful people from Just Like Us. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Dan. That message was really beautiful at the end. It's really nice to hear about the rich LGBT history that we have across so many different countries, cultures and religions. So we're now going to start the question and answer part of this workshop. So some of our lovely ambassadors have got some questions for you. So Ramses, our first ambassador, has a question to pose for you.
Yes, hi. So you mentioned about a lot of people in LGBT plus art, but what about artists? Were there a lot of LGBT plus artists in the past?
There were lots of LGBT plus artists, LGBTQ plus artists in the past. Sometimes it's hard to tell, because I think some of the objects that I've shown you, we don't know who made them. And so sometimes tricky to find, but this is something that there are lots of people in museums who are interested in this now. And so we are trying to do our best to identify people from the past who are LGBTQ plus, because it's really important to show that we exist across place, time and culture.
Thank you so much for that. And so our next question is coming from Adam.
Hello. So my question is, why is LGBT plus art special?
I think it's special because it shows love that I didn't see when I was growing up. And I wish that while I was growing up, I knew that LGBTQ plus people were deserving of love as well. And so what makes the art special is that it allows us to see ourselves in it. And seeing ourselves, it means that we can help accept ourselves better. And after acceptance comes celebration. So it's Pride Month at the moment. And so being able to celebrate our own identity and who we are and and love who we want to love, I think is really important.
Thank you. I really like that answer. So our next question is from our ambassador, Misha. So Misha has a question for you now.
Hi, my question is, what is your favourite LGBT plus piece of art or artist?
That's a really good one. I particularly love, so I introduced you to Avalokiteshvara Guan Yin, and there is one that is in Vietnam, and it has lots and lots of arms, and it has an eye on each arm as well, so it can see everybody, and it can help everybody as well when it sees people, when this being sees people who need help. And I really like it because I grew up seeing it, but I didn't realize the really important connection that it has for transgender and non-binary people. Because at the museum, when I invite people to come to the museum to look at works of art now, when they see Avalokiteshvara Guan Yin, they feel that they can see themselves in this particular object. And I think it's really important that we are accepting of everybody in all the different ways that they are. And I think it's also great that in the same idea where we're talking about an object that transgender and non-binary people might see themselves in it, that we're also talking about love and compassion and showing love and compassion for people that I think are often really unfairly treated and bullied quite a lot. And so I think it's really important that we show solidarity, which means that we show that we're friends with them and that we show that we support them in what they want to do and achieve in life as well.
Thank you. I'm really liking all the messages and the meanings from a lot of the art that we've been looking at. So our next question is from Romano, so take it away.
Hi Dan, I just wanted to know if LGBT people were better at art than non-LGBT people, in your opinion.
I mean, I think that we are all, this is the great thing, we're all artists. We all can put a pen to a piece of paper or a crayon to a piece of paper. And I think that art really is objective. That means that you can think that your art is great, or you might think that someone else's art is great, and they may have different opinions as well. And that's fine. I think that you can like the type of art that you like. And the thing that makes LGBTQ plus art special, I think, is for the reason that I've kind of explained, which is that it has a really important role in us understanding our history. And what that means is when we look at an LGBTQ plus piece of art that is very, very old, it reminds us that this law that we had that means that people cannot be LGBTQ plus in different parts of the world, or might be bullied for it in different parts of the world, it's a reminder that there is something that's much older than this law that only came in a few hundred years ago. This is an identity that's thousands of years old. They may have called it differently. They wouldn't have called it LGBTQ plus, but they understand what it means for a woman to love a woman, a man to love a man, and for different types of love to exist. And so I think that what that means is that we can take something from the past, an LGBTQ plus piece of art from the past, help us understand where we are today, and it will actually help shape our future as well if we can all understand this together.
Thank you. That's really interesting how relevant our history and our art is to today. So we've got our last question now from our ambassador, Daniel.
Hi, Dan. My question is, what's it like to work in a museum?
Museums are so cool. I love museums. So I have been visiting museums since I was a kid. And when I used to go there, it used to be look up at the dinosaurs. And so I'd see these really big dinosaurs, and I just realized how teeny tiny and small I was, but also how old everything can be as well. But museums now are also about what's happening today. And lots of museums will now be collecting things that relate to us today. And I recently did an LGBTQ plus tour for the Museum of Childhood at the V&A, and that was collecting things from children, and so school books or toys, and what it was it was trying to describe everybody's life today as well, so that future people will know what life was like for you. And I think it's really important that we celebrate LGBTQ plus stories in our museums as well. So it means that for children who are LGBTQ plus, it means that we're going to be telling your stories as well, because we want to make sure that everybody is represented. Because when we can represent everybody, it helps us understand other cultures, other people from different backgrounds. And if we can understand each other, it means that we can, as I've said before, accept and celebrate each other.
So I'd like to say a massive thank you to Dan for speaking with us today and all the ambassadors with their great questions. I'd like to remind everyone that we've got some awesome masterclasses running all week, and you can find them at www.justlikeus.org/masterclasses. And if you're on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, you can find us at Just Like Us UK. And if you've enjoyed Dan's talk today, then you can find more from him on his Twitter or Instagram at Dan Nouveau. Please do follow up with the activities he suggested. We will be posting those on our social medias. And remember that whilst the museums might be closed at the moment, you can always look up some of the things that Dan was talking with us today online. Please do message us directly if you want to let us know you're taking part in School Diversity Week, but remember to always stay safe online. We have a special page on the Just Like Us website with tips on how to stay safe, which is www.justlikeus.org/betteronline. Once again, thank you all for joining us today. I hope you're enjoying and involving yourself in School Diversity Week. So final thank you for Dan for speaking, and goodbye for now.